Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in. Thank you for coming in on the stream. I want to discuss the gun ban that was put in place by Michelle Lujan Grisham in the state of New Mexico. It was a 30-day gun ban put into place as a health order in Bernalillo County, specifically Albuquerque, New Mexico. Well, as of almost 5 o'clock this evening, a federal judge has officially blocked part of the public health order anyway, that suspended the right to carry guns in public across New Mexico's largest metro area as criticisms mounted over the actions taken by the governor and political divides widened. The ruling Wednesday by U.S. District Judge David Urias marks a setback for Democratic New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham as she responds to several recent shootings that took the lives of children, including an 11-year-old boy, as he left a minor league baseball game in Albuquerque. Lujan Grisham imposed an emergency public health order Friday that suspended the right to open or concealed carry of guns in public places based on a statistical threshold for violent crime that applied only to Albuquerque and the surrounding area. The governor cited recent shootings around the state that left children dead, saying something needed to be done. District Judge Urias agreed Wednesday with plaintiffs in several lawsuits who said the orders violated constitutional rights and granted a temporary restraining order to block the governor's suspension of gun rights. It is in place until an October 3rd court hearing that will likely be a permanent injunction from what I am hearing. Speaking of Lujan Grisham's actions, Urias said, "I don't blame her for wanting to take action in the face of terrible acts." But he said he was faced with a much more narrow question regarding the rights afforded to citizens. State police had authority under the order to assess civil penalties and a fine of up to $5,000. The local sheriff and Albuquerque police chief had refused to enforce the firearms ban. The rest of the public health order, including directives for monthly inspections of firearms dealers statewide, reports on gunshot victims at New Mexico hospitals, and wastewater testing for illicit substances remain intact. So the gun ban was the big part of that order, but was not the only part of that order. It was also monthly inspections of firearm dealers statewide, reports of gunshot victims at New Mexico hospitals, and wastewater testing for illicit substances. And all of those parts of that order will remain intact. Just the gun ban will not. Advocates for gun rights filed a barrage of legal challenges to the order in U.S. District Court in Albuquerque, alleging infringement of civil rights under the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Republicans in the legislative majority have called for impeachment proceedings against the governor. Lujan Grisham has remained defiant despite protests that have drawn crowds to public squares in Albuquerque over recent days. The governor is testing the boundaries of her executive authority again after using public health orders for aggressive lockdowns during the outset of the coronavirus pandemic. Still, she acknowledged that criminals would likely ignore the temporary order given Friday. Mothers and military veterans have been among those demonstrating, many with holstered handguns on their hips and rifles slung over their shoulders. They have voiced concerns about the ability to protect themselves from violent crime in a city that has been scarred by drive-by shootings and deadly road rage incidents. Even top Democrats, including New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres, have suggested that the governor's time would have been better spent developing comprehensive legislation to tackle that issue. New Mexico is an open carry state, so the governor's order suspending the open and concealed carry of firearms has affected anyone in Bernalillo County who can legally own a gun, with some exceptions. Just over 14,500 people in Bernalillo County had an active concealed carry license, according to an Associated Press analysis of data provided by the New Mexico Department of Public Safety for the 2023 fiscal year. Statewide, including Bernalillo County, the 2023 fiscal year data showed just over 45,000 active concealed carry licenses. State police confirmed late Tuesday that no one has been cited for violating the governor's order. The New Mexico Chiefs of Police Association said every law enforcement officer in the state shares Lujan Grisham's concerns about gun violence. but the order was the wrong way to go. The association will join others in calling for a special legislative session to tackle gun violence, said the group's head, Farmington Police Chief Stephen Heeb. The knee-jerk reaction to curtail the rights of every citizen rather than focusing on lawbreakers who plague our communities can't be justified, Heeb said. Albuquerque Mayor Tim Keller and Police Chief Harold Medina on Tuesday outlined what the city has been doing to address crime, saying law enforcement and judicial officials have been meeting since 2021 to develop legislative priorities and other efforts to fix what they referred to as a broken criminal justice system. The officials said many of the proposals have been watered down to the point of being ineffective, and funding for vital programs and personnel has been cut. Albuquerque families can't afford political debates that distract us from fighting violent crime, Keller said. This is a powerful moment to listen to police and behavioral health professionals to create the change we need in a special session. So that is the latest news on that order. Now, when she put that order in to effect and I heard about it, I had one thought and one thought only. And that was that just like any politician today who is on either side, left or right, I don't care, instead of bringing common sense and a more reasonable approach to the situation, they decide to go to the extreme left or the extreme right. And neither extreme is ever the answer for anything, especially of this nature. Now, I also understood where she was coming from with this order again, like I said, but again, I think she went to the complete extreme. I think there was a much better way to do this. I understand the Second Amendment is a huge thing, but as a law-abiding citizen who is able to carry a gun, your gun should be legally registered to you. There's certain things you should go through to have that gun legally. I'm trying to word this correctly so it doesn't come out wrong, but I don't really give a damn either way. But so not necessarily put a gun ban into place, but make it known that the cops are going to crack down on guns in public, meaning if they see you with a holstered weapon, they do not have to assume that you are legal to carry that weapon, because even some criminals will holster a weapon and carry it if they know or they think that is what it is going to take for them to not get questioned. So you could be stopped, you could be asked, hey, permit, B, gun to run it for registration. Oh, this gun isn't registered, so it's an illegal gun. Now you're under the arrest for possession of an illegal firearm. That gets an illegal firearm off of the streets and possibly stops one crime, if not many, many more crimes that could have been committed with that illegal firearm. Now, 90% of gun crimes, if you look it up, that are committed by guns that are not legally registered, that are stolen, that are ghost. They don't have a serial number on them, so they can't be traced. They're ghost guns. They're ghost weapons. And those are the most dangerous. Now, in a place like Bernalillo County, where there have been, I would say just in the last week and a half, at least 2 that I have heard of, younger children, 11 and I believe 13, shot and killed by drive-by shootings. Now, I almost guarantee you those drive-by shootings were not committed by somebody who had a legal firearm and a legal right to carry that firearm. Now, again, they're not going to pull over everybody and say, hey, let me see if you have a gun. No. So that doesn't stop that crime necessarily. But at least one that I've heard of was people walking down the street started shooting. Okay, that could have been stopped. Possibly not 100% probable, but could have been had there been a little more sight to, hey, there's a gun in public. Let's check that gun for registration. Let's check that gun for permit. Let's make sure that gun isn't stolen. Hey, guess what? If you're a legal, law-abiding citizen, your gun's registered to you the way it should be. You have... It's open carry here, so you don't even really necessarily have to have a permit, but in a concealed carry state where you do, you have the permit, gun's registered. Hey, good, you're here. Here's your gun back. You're on your way. Have a good day. But again, that other person gets stopped that the gun isn't registered. They don't have a permit. Maybe they're a felon carrying a firearm. I'm sorry. I'm a felon. Felons, at least violent felon, and I'm not even a violent felon, but certain felonies, and I believe all felonies in some states, bar you from the right to have a firearm. Most of your gun violence occurs by felons who have guns who should not have guns. So the gun ban, absolutely not the way to go about this. I think there was a more sensible approach. While there will be some people who argue that even that approach still infringes on the Second Amendment right, laws, rulings, court rulings, amendments, things of that nature, when they were written, weren't necessarily written in a time where everything was thought of to be included. And I believe there is a time for things to have to, where things have to adapt to the modern era and the society that we live in today. Now, no, you do not take away a Second Amendment right. Never, ever, ever is that the answer. You never take away any constitutional right. But I believe that there is some way that she could have went about this with, and I believe she did. She attempted to, or at least the sheriff's office, the county and city and state even offices tried to sit down with her and work out a way to not necessarily have this gun ban, but watch for the guns in public in a way that wouldn't infringe on anybody's Second Amendment, which again, if you're permitted or if that gun is registered to you in an open carry state, you can openly carry it, you can conceal carry it, but if you conceal carry it, in most states you're supposed to have a permit. If you open carry it, it means it's not concealed, you can see it in public. Okay, if you can see it with the naked eye, and a cop stops you and says, hey, I want to check your gun for registration. I want to check, make sure you have your permit. Cool. Awesome. If you're a law-abiding citizen, why should you have an issue with that? That would be my only question. And that would be the way I would approach it. That would have been the way I would have tried to approach it if I was her. I wouldn't have went, let's take away the Second Amendment, because that's basically what she said. And when she said, let's put a gun ban on, that's where everybody jumped to is, oh, she's trying to take our guns away. Don't think that she was necessarily trying to take guns away. I think she was trying to curtail a very, 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 very dark time in this area. But as a politician in the modern era, she, like all politicians do, jumped to the very, 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 very extreme of the spectrum that she needed to be on. Some people are calling for the impeachment of Grisham. I don't live in New Mexico, so I'm not going to speak on impeachment or not impeachment. I'm going to leave that up to her constituents to decide. But I think impeachment is also an extreme end of the spectrum that doesn't necessarily need to be jumped to, and gets jumped to quite often. There was another story. Give me just a second. Just trying to bring back up if my phone will work. It's called 16 Years Old and Gun Violence. I was trying to find it and I can't find it now. Of course not. Here it is. Nope. Never mind. Let's see. I might or might not find this. Just trying to wait to see if I had any comments or anybody that wanted to say anything on this as well. I can't believe I can't find that story. That's crazy. Crazy how it was there 17 minutes ago. It was there 3 minutes before I went live. I didn't get a chance to read it, of course. Because I was in the process of getting this set up so I could do this from a computer and not from a cell phone. But anyway, that was basically all I was going to say about that. I was hoping I could find that story and read it real quick. Because I scanned through it and it seemed like it was pretty interesting and kind of gave a little, at least from what I skimmed through, seemed to try to give a little clarity into where Grisham's mind might have been when she made the statement that she made. Because the fact of the matter is, if you look at the stats of gun violence in the United States compared to the gun violence in the state of New Mexico, that gun violence, I believe, is nearly double in the Bernalillo County, Albuquerque, but especially just in the state of New Mexico itself, gun violence is almost double the national average, I do believe, if I read that right as well. And then they broke it down even more and said that more of that crime is committed by the youth with guns. And they're talking under the age of 18, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old children with guns, thinking they're thugs, thinking they're gangsters, going out and shooting people instead of handling it in other ways. They get mad and they pull a gun and they shoot you instead. And I actually want to give props to the Albuquerque PD and the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Department, because they are actually talking and trying to get things in place to early intervene with these kids to teach them why guns are not the answers and to try to get them away from the guns. It doesn't seem like that is being done enough, and they are doing it or trying to get it into place where they can start doing it in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. The unfortunate part of that, most people don't want to admit, is that just like any big major city, Albuquerque and Bernalillo County is all wrapped up in politics, and so they want to try to curtail an issue publicly, but they, not necessarily behind closed doors, are doing everything they can to curtail it, if you ask me. Because getting the gun, the drug dealers, the guns, the minors in possession of a firearm, that gives that minor an early felony, that makes them a felon for the rest of their life, that makes them more likely to commit crimes in the future and send them down a bad path. And now they've got a never-ending revenue stream, because every time that person gets arrested, every time that person gets a fine, every time that person gets put in a jail, they make money. That's the dark truth behind police. That's why police, a lot of times it's said, are not. Police have become militarized. Let's just put it that way. That's my opinion. A lot of police have become militarized. Undercover cops, undercover sheriffs, undercover this, undercover that, unmarked this, unmarked that. You don't go unmarked to protect and serve. You go unmarked to hunt. You wear camo to go deer hunting. You wear an orange vest so other hunters see you. If that makes sense. So while the police say they're trying to do what they can to curtail this issue, I don't believe they're doing everything they can to curtail that issue, because if they were, the issue wouldn't be as serious as it is, because there would already be things in place that would curtail that issue. I hope that anybody that comes back in here and watches this later will leave a comment, leave their thoughts. Maybe at some point I do another live and we talk a little more about gun violence in general on a national level, get more people up on panel, give their opinions, their thoughts on gun violence, on ways to curtail gun violence, things we could do to minimize it so that it's not as big of an issue as it is now. And in all honesty, I don't think that Lujan Grisham will get impeached. But again, I don't live in New Mexico, so who knows? I think just because you make a statement doesn't make, or you try to issue a public health order to issue a ban to try to curtail an issue, even though that was the extreme of it, and everybody knows that. I don't believe that necessarily puts you in impeachable territory. I mean, hell, look at things that have happened in people that either have or haven't been impeached and what they've been impeached or haven't been impeached for. I don't think this is as bad as what some people have been impeached for. And I think some people have gotten away with far worse and not been impeached. So if we're going to start throwing impeachment for every little thing, then let's just impeach everybody. All of them. All 400 and whatever it is of them that are senators and congressmen in the United States, and the president and his cabinet too. Let's impeach them all and throw them all out and start all over. Because I'm sure they've all done something that if we knew about it, we'd say, hey, let's impeach them. Because that's the word everybody likes to use and throw around now. And I don't care left, right. Doesn't matter to me. Because I am neither. Because I think they're both a joke. They're both only out for themselves. So I'm neither. I'm not left. I'm not right. I'm trying to come to solutions that'll move this country forward. Just like the forward movement. If you want to know more about that, we'll have discussions about that in another stream as well. That's going to go ahead and do it for me. Thank you for coming in and tuning in. This has been the local news of Michelle Lujan Grisham and her 30-day gun ban, now blocked by a federal judge until October 3rd at least. We'll find out October 3rd if it continues or what shall happen. Until next time, this is KC with KHLC Internet Radio Network.